Good morning, everyone. And a warm welcome to all of you to our September Shotsukihoyo monthly memorial service. Today we are fortunate to have our supervising minister, Reverend Dennis Fujimoto of the Alameda Temple, present here to conduct the service. Let us begin with a quiet meditation. Please sit quietly and place your hands together in Kansho. Sensei will ring the bell to begin and end the meditation.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida.
Please please stand for the opening gatha, Namo Amida Butsu, on page 174, and remain standing for the reading of the three treasures. Please turn to page 8 in the service book for the three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult it is to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way of enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be free from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Butsu. Namo Butsu. Namo Butsu. Namo. The names of the Shotsukihoyo honorees for this month will now be read. As the names are being read, if you are observing the Shotsukihoyo this month, please come forward to offer incense. The September Shotsukihoyo honorees are as follows: Kazue Arishita, Tomao Baba, Misao Fujihara, Ichizo Furuta, Risuke Kawaoka, Takahashi Kawata, Matsujiro Matsuda, Waichi Matsumoto, Taku Morita, Kato Murakami, Suzumu Otani, Miyake Taniguchi, Tojiro James Wada, Haruo Ishiguro, Minobu Furuta, Harry Sugiyama, Jimmy Tsujihara, Joyce Kawahara, Greg Mitsugi Okazaki, James Satoshi Koga, Yoneko Pat Shimizu, Tatsuyo Koga, Yukiko Matsuda, Paul Nichols-Field, Arlene Morikawa, Shigeko Taniguchi, Mabel Sumiko Kazaki, Rose Leoka, Frank Sanada, Tsugue Ogata, Lloyd Yoshioka, Takeshi Yamazaki, Ed Kawaoka, Morton Otani, David Murakami. correct the reading of two names here. Takeshi Kameoka, Florence Yamazaki. For today's sutra chanting, Sensei will offer Sambujo on page 24 in dedication, and then the following sutra chanting, Amida, the first half. That's on page 103 in your service book.
Today, on this occasion of the Shotsuki service for the month of September, members and friends of the Enmanji Buddhist Temple have reverently come before Amida Buddha in memory of their beloved. With deepest reverence and thankfulness for the all-embracing wisdom and compassion of Amida, we reaffirm the three homages. Namo Butsu, Namo Ho, Namo Soul. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Please repeat the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. shogun, ichi chuya rokuji, iu mandara ke gokoku shujo, choi shotan, kakui e koku joshu yoke, uyota mo juman no kubutsu sui, jikiji kento hongoku mon, jikikyo gyo shari mo kokura, kokuro joju nyoze kuroku shogun, ushi shari mo ikoku jobu, shujuki myoza shiki shicho, yakoku jaku obu shari, kanyo binga gumyo shicho, sesho shucho karocha rokuji, suiwa de ongo onensho, okongo riki shipo daigon, ashodo bunyoze to, odo shujo monze onni, aishitsu nen butsu nen ho nen so, shari ho no motsu ishi cho jitsu zenzai ho sho 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 ishaga, ibu kokudo musan makushu, shari ho kobu kokudo, shobu san makudo shimyo kakyo, ujitsu zesho shucho, kaise amida butsu yokuryo, onzenru enge shosa, shari ho ibu kokudo mifu suido, shobo goju yuhora mo, suimi nyo onyo gyakusen, jugaku noji kusa monze onsha, kaiji nenjo nenbutsu nenbo, nenso shishin shari ho, obu kokudo, shoju nyoze, udoku shogun,
We will now hear a dharma message from Reverend Dennis Fujimoto.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see so many here today at think we have additional people here, and to be able to come to the Shotsuki service, I think it's always special for everyone, very meaningful to acknowledge the people that we have lost in our families and to make that connection. And as a minister, it's very special. Families come and sometimes not just regular temple attendees, but families encourage the rest others in their family to come and join in and participate. And through that, we have new faces. People come to learn a little bit more, hearing about the Dharma and the ways of the temple, and in a sense, coming to support the elders in the family and learning the ways of the temple and the ways of the families when they come to these special monthly memorials, the Shotsuki service. So this makes it all the more special and very much rewarding for not only the minister but all the regulars of the temple who work so hard to keep things going here, preparing the altar and providing the melodies and all these things, the flowers and setting up, and all of these things come to me that much more, and it's appreciated when people do come to be a part of this. So today I was going to talk about go-in. And so this sometimes can be called fortuitous encounters or karmic connections. So this is go-in, G-O-E-N, okay? And today I thought I would share the story about go-in and the fire that occurred at the Idaho, Oregon Buddhist Temple. So some of you who are familiar, I was one of the ministers there at that temple, and then we've had stories in the Wheel of Dharma. This is Charmin's home temple, my wife Charmin, and so we are particularly close to that temple and the stories that go on there, and it's kind of ongoing, so completely separate from the fire that was over there. Enmanji had a plan to have the Wakabayashi company come to visit our temple here to look at some minor repairs that they could do on our Onaijin setting here upon the altar. So they had arrangements for this Wakabayashi group to come and visit in a few days. September 13th was the plan. Reverend Taniguchi and Daryl Yagi were going to meet them and to kind of host them as they were coming back again. They're familiar with the temple. And so President Diane thought, since I should be aware of this visit. So she texted me and let me know that this is happening, this is going on. So, okay, that's nice, this is cool. So this Wakabayashi group had also come to the temple in Alameda, where I usually am. And in 2016 was Alameda's 100th anniversary. So in preparation for that centennial event, they had done some major work at the Alameda Temple for their altar setting. So Taniguchi Sensei was very familiar with the Wakabayashi group, and so as all these plans were being made to have them visit here, the fire at the Idaho, Oregon Temple occurred, okay? So in Idaho, Oregon, their temple president, Mike Iseri, he had the impression that companies doing this kind of work weren't coming to the United States because of the pandemic conditions, and so travel restrictions and things like that, and he just assumed. So downstairs is the social hall. The main fire was there, and right above is the Hondo, the Onaijin, and so it was just smoke damage, not fire damage up in their setting like this, okay? But smoke damage nonetheless, and he just assumed that nobody would be able to come and help, and so it's just he and the members would just do the best they could to clean up, maybe repolish some of the gold leaf and all these things, And being a country temple far away from most temples, they are quite handy and they do a lot of these repairs quite on their own. The Wakabayashi group had a very tight schedule of just 2.5 days in the Bay Area.
stops planned at the Monterey Temple, here to Enmanji, before flying to Los Angeles to do some more work planned over there. Okay, so it was suggested that maybe I could meet them when they come here to Enmanji, bring some of the fire damage pictures for them to see what had happened in Eastern Oregon. Okay, and in my mind, when that was suggested, I thought, why wait till September? You know, this was like 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Why wait that long for them to know anything at all about what had happened? You know, can I send them pictures? Who are these people in Japan? You know, can I send them pictures to Japan beforehand? Right? Can they even find time to go up there to Eastern Oregon? So these are going through my mind as it was suggested to wait and bring a handful of pictures here in September. So eventually I learned that Brian Nagata, Oakland member, was very familiar with this Wakabayashi group that was coming. So I emailed Brian to see if there might be any possibility that they could run up to Eastern Oregon, to that temple there. So Brian tells me that there's 2 of them coming from Japan, and they're going to stay at his house in the Bay Area. Okay? So wow. How nice. So not only that, Brian Nagata in Oakland and the temple president, Mikey Seri, they had been Boy Scouts in their younger days. Okay? So those 2 and another, Ralph Honda in San Diego member, the 3 of them had gone to the Boy Scout World Jamboree in Japan in 1971. And on that trip, my father, Reverend Hogan Fujimoto, was the Buddhist chaplain at that time. So they all have memories of this trip going to Japan together, and it's kind of like their own personal, private story that they bring up every time they're able to see each other. Okay? So then all these connections were starting to emerge and made all these, first they seemed like obscure, distant images and possibilities. So they're kind of coming into view, these blurry ideas and thoughts starting to come into focus, right? So the plan had become that instead of they could go to Idaho, Oregon, if they changed the schedule here, so they would come on Monday instead of Tuesday. And so that adjustment was made. Still, they need to fly up to Boise, and once they get to Boise, it's a 1-hour drive from Boise to the temple. Okay? So Brian is asking, can someone from the temple pick them up and drive them there and back? So in addition to the flight time and getting to the airport in Oakland, they get to Boise, drive in to Ontario, Oregon, Eastern Oregon. They would have just a 2-hour window to maybe have lunch and view their temple setting, and then drive back to Boise in time to catch their flight back to Oakland, right? So everything had to be perfectly aligned, but doable, okay? Then, Idaho, Oregon is the home temple of our bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America, Bishop Marvin Harada. And he happens to be visiting there just when Wakabayashi is coming there, okay? So when I was there, serving as their minister, on occasion, Reverend Marvin would come in to visit his family, right? Mom and Dad lived there. They were our regular temple members, and they would be at service every Sunday, welcoming. We would say our hellos and visit with each other. And so when Reverend Marvin would come, sometimes his wife, sometimes his 2 children, so it'd be like a family gathering, and maybe one day during the week, we would sit together at McDonald's and have coffee together and talk about what's going on there and what's going on everywhere, and we would be able to catch up with each other. And an opportune time, since you're here, would you like to speak on Sunday? So I would get an extra guest speaker, right? So Reverend Marvin, and it's a treat because everyone grew up with Reverend Marvin, and his parents get to hear him speak. I get a little bit of break from giving a dharma message. So it kind of worked out perfectly when he would come to visit. So Reverend Bishop Marvin suggested that he's going to be there. He could be the one to meet the Wakabayashi two people, pick them up in Boise, drive them back to Ontario. They could visit along the way. They have 1 hour window to chat with each other and seem all the more. They could hear about the story of Idaho, Oregon, hear about Bishop Harada's connection to that temple, hear about BC as a whole because the bishop is there along with them. So it seemed like very fortuitous that all of these connections would be the same. And then after a couple hours at Idaho, Oregon temple, he would drive them again back to the airport in Boise. So all of these things seem to be fitting just right, just perfectly, okay? So this all happens in about 10 days. So stay tuned for the next exciting episode, all right? But I think this is a perfect example of going, right? Fortuitous encounters, karmic connections. And we come across going, things like this happen now and then, sometimes quite often, right? And sometimes it seems even more so when we're in the temple setting. So here at the temple, this going happens. We can think of times when things fell perfectly in place and almost miraculously sometimes. So in a sense, this is our practice. Our life is going. So our practice is to recognize this, exactly this. And we can recognize the story of Indra's net. Maybe many of you are familiar with the Buddhist story of Indra's net. And in this story are this infinite net stretched out in all directions. And at each knot of the net is a precious jewel, okay? And we are these jewels. So each knot holds a precious jewel, and each jewel is reflecting the light from all the other jewels in the net, okay? So this one jewel is you or me. The next jewel might be mom and dad that you are honoring today for Shotsuki, or your uncle, your auntie, your parents, whoever in your family, your children, each are different nets. Other people in the Sangha, different jewels in the nets, okay? People you work with, people at the grocery store. All these people that touch your lives are these precious, precious jewels. And our lives reflect their brilliant light, okay? And we do this back and forth. And so this is a story of Indra's net, and to recognize that this is our lives, okay? So to find ourselves in the midst of all these connections is to awaken to what we call this embrace of Amida Buddha, right? So awakening, becoming enlightened, is not some surge of wisdom that hits you in the head and all of a sudden you're wise. Awakening is to see and to recognize and to know that we are each a part of this greater reality, this interconnected, interrelated net of wonderful, beautiful jewels of life, conditions, and connections surrounding us, sustaining us incredibly. So this is what we find in our own lives when we hear the story of the fire in Idaho, Oregon, and how these things all fit together. Seems like perfectly. This happens in our own lives so many times. And when we see this, we can appreciate exactly that. This is what Nembutsu means, to be able to appreciate that we are a part of all this interconnected reality. Please join me in Kansho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your talk. I myself have been wondering what was happening out of that temple. And it turns out something marvelous is happening. For our closing gatha, let us rise for Ondoksan 2 on page 220 in purple. On behalf of all of us, I would like to express our great appreciation to Reverend Dennis Fujimoto for coming all the way here to our temple to officiate and to give his talk. To Mr. Daryl Yagi, who did the Kansho and also did the setup work in the Onaijin. And to the Toban group for the flowers and offering. If you've not had a chance yet to do so, please do feel free to step forward and offer incense. Thank you all again for being here today.